having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Look, he wore colorful socks today.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
Jeez, that's pretty
colorful.
bold.
You were just talking about Road to Spain. I'm feeling a little European today.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I was telling drunk stories about when I was 15 years old. But so you grew up in Cincinnati.
Yep.
So tell us about how you went from Cincinnati, where you went to school, and how you ended up in Dripping Springs, Texas.
Interesting story, and really boils down to not having any direction whatsoever, even going through college. Grew up in downtown Cincinnati, over to Rhine, and then Price Hill. Went to an all-boys Catholic high school, which in all candor probably kept me out of jail. So my dad had quite a bit of good foresight. He also grew up in the same area, and he kind of saw the path that I could be on and was likely going to be on. So he, a smart guy, much smarter than me.
Encourage the service route?
Not just encourage the service route, but put me into an environment when I was in high school where it would I'd become more aware of the options. So not just college, but also post-college, like what were the options open to me?
Did you know, so you, at that point, you weren't ready to go to college, you were thinking you weren't going to, so he put you in a school where maybe you were a little more inclined to do that?
I had never thought of it.
Really?
Yeah. So growing up, came from a divorced family. My parents divorced when I was 9. Father, both of them did a phenomenal job, but my dad took a little bit more ownership. And I think that what he saw from the environment we were growing up in is going to need a little bit more intentional direction, intentional conversations with me, and then place me in an environment to where I could see, what was open to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Did your dad go to college?
He did. He went to Bismarck Junior College in North Dakota, and then on to a different college where he played basketball.
Okay. And then you played basketball in college?
I did. And so that was one of the great things about where he put me in high school, and started to grow up a little bit, become more aware of the environment, like what I could actually do. Went on, played at a small school in Ohio.
Okay. What'd you get your degree in?
Operations management and marketing, two of the most boring things.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah.
That is my life.
That is exactly what Michelle does for me.
That is my title.
Operation management and marketing.
Actually, I say I'm the personality hire. Let's be honest.
That sounds way better.
It does. I would say I have a very important question for you, because I was reading about Cincinnati. I was reading about where you grew up. What the heck is Skyline Chili?
What do you mean, what the heck is Skyline
What
Chili?
is it?
What the heck is it that you don't know Skyline
I don't.
Chili?
It's
I don't know what
sweet.
Skyline Chili
It's
is.
sweet and...
Hey, let's take a pause right now as you listen to my heartbreak. So Skyline Chili is only good in Cincinnati. It is not good chili anywhere else. However, I do love it. It's got a little bit of cinnamon sprinkled into it, very thin, very watery. So nothing like what we want to eat out here, but it's a part of home. It's a part of Cincinnati, so I claim it.
That sounds absolutely disgusting.
Are there beans in it?
There are beans in it if you
That's not
request
real
beans.
chili. That's not real
That's
chili.
not chili. Yeah. So, Chad, when did you realize that you wanted to go into the military?
About the time I was getting close to graduating and realized that I had no desire to be operations management or marketing. Loved the small team environment, had played sports, obviously, all the way through college, and then was very fortunate. I had a family member, a close cousin, who was a ranger instructor down in Florida phase of ranger school at the time where I was getting close to graduating college. So he sat me down, gave me some really good, solid advice on career paths if you want to go into the military. Hey, you like the small team environment, you love the camaraderie, the community, that small, tight-knit community. This is the direction that you should go. So he put me on the path to eventually take me to Special Forces selection.
So when you went in, that was your goal, was to be Special Forces?
That was my primary goal. Now, I was very naive, had no idea what else the military offered aside from the special operations community. That's the only thing I'd really researched. But for my path, I would have to go through the conventional Army first, which was a completely different life experience than growing up in downtown Cincinnati.
I bet it was.
Yeah, and I saw that you reported to boot camp September 11th, 2001. Walk us through that crazy time.
So I tried to report to MEPS where we push out of, so where we tried to push out of for boot camp on September 11th, 2001. As the North Tower was hit, I was walking in the front door of MEPS to ship out. obviously, they had no idea what was taking place. There were 13 of us that were supposed to ship out from that station, that MEP station in Cincinnati that day. So they pulled us into a back room, told us they obviously didn't have any idea what was going to go on, what the repercussions were going to be. They're going to send us back home. They'd reach out and contact us in about a week to give us further instruction on when to report back and what was going to take place. I think we came back in about 2 weeks later, and out of the 13, 2 of us showed up.
I was going to say.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the other 11 were the smart ones. They stayed in downtown Cincinnati. And me and some other guys shipped out 2 weeks after September 11th.
How does that work? Weren't they already
Sworn in?
Weren't they sworn in, or how?
There wasn't any real repercussions for not showing up at that
Okay.
point.
The world was in chaos at that time.
Complete chaos,
Yeah,
yep.
Nobody. And then you went right into boot camp from there.
Yep, went into boot camp, gorgeous Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Months and months out of my life that I'll never get back. But again, different life experiences, so always something valuable to put out of it, I
So
think.
you go to boot camp, and that's just the basic boot camp to join the Army that everybody has to go through, right?
Yep.
And then what happens after that?
After that, I get done. So I was 13 Bravo, which was a cannoneer. I think we were maybe 1 or 2 IQ points above being a cook in the military. So if there's any cooks listening, apologize, but not really. And then you go on to your individual training, which lasts another few weeks. And then I shipped out for airborne school. And then from airborne school, got to my first duty station, Fort Bragg. We had a couple of unique family circumstances that caused me to get a compassionate reassignment down to gorgeous Fort Stewart, Georgia, which is about 45 minutes inland from Savannah. We're really not close enough to Savannah for my liking.
Yeah.
To enjoy that.
Yeah. And so by the time I got to Fort Stewart in Georgia, it was about the time to pack up and deploy to Kuwait in preparation for the second invasion of Iraq in 2002. So we hit the ground in Kuwait, I believe, in actually January, like first week of January 2003.
Had you finished your training at that point?
Yeah, we had finished all the training. So I've been through basic AIT, our individual training, airborne school, and had gotten in one solid field exercise at my duty station before we pushed out.
So were you officially Special Forces at that point?
No, I was still in the regular conventional military. type
Okay.
role.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you airborne school, and then so you did this tour in that was in Kuwait, right?
Well, we started off in Kuwait, and then a couple months later kicked off the actual war, pushed into Iraq.
Okay.
And spent all the way up to May 27th, 2003 in Iraq.
Not counting or anything.
Not counting.
What was the biggest culture shock for you when you were over there?
The fact that there were pieces of it that still looked like it was from biblical times, but then just a stark difference between that and then you get into a place like Baghdad, where there were palaces and roadways, and there was very much a modern infrastructure. A level or two down from what we understand, but there was a very modern infrastructure and very modern society. But then, just a few hundred kilometers away, it looked like it hadn't been touched since, the times of Jesus.
For 2,000 years.
Yep.
Wow. What about were there street vendors, like food vendors and stuff? Were you guys brave enough to just eat stuff off of the street?
So yes, absolutely, there were. So after the big push stopped and we kind of went into peacekeeping mode, so all the street vendors started to come back out. The population started to come back out, interact. Don't yell at me.
That's okay.
She will.
I know. That's what I was scared of. And so, we were brave enough because at that point, all you'd eaten is MREs. And maybe every once in a while you got hot chow. So the possibility of eating something hot and fresh, no matter where it came from, was...
Were the locals at that time, were they all happy to see you guys for the most part?
For the most part, it started to turn around that month, May, June, is really when more of the insurgency part of it started to take place.
Because they kind of got reorganized, is that what it was?
We had pushed out the stability force, essentially what the military was, and then that allowed an insurgency to come in, take root, take command.
Okay.
And so that's when, that follow-on sort of asymmetric warfare aspect of it came into play.
And then did you leave then Iraq and then go back for Special Forces training?
So I left I left Iraq May 27, 2003, actually, because I had been hit by an enemy hand grenade. So I got medevaced out and spent a year back at Walter Reed.
Oh, geez.
And then once I got done at Walter Reed, got caught up in one more deployment with my unit out of Fort Stewart. And so after my second deployment with the conventional military, came back. Was it by the time we got back? It was January 2005, and went to Special Forces Assessment and Selection in March, April.
So I want to go back to your time in Walter Reed. So was
Sure.
there an opportunity though for you to get out of the military? Could you have gotten out at that time?
Have you talked to my wife?
Yeah.
Did you know this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so there was probably one of the more painful but best 11 months, almost a year of my life spent at Walter Reed. And to answer your question directly, yeah, I was given the opportunity to medically retire out of Walter Reed. However, took a second to process it and decided against it, which is actually how I ended up going back to Fort Stewart. When I decided after they had given me the opportunity to medically retire, was I hadn't actually accomplished or even attempted to accomplish my intent, my desired end state inside the military, to go and attempt to become a Green Beret. So that night, after considering what they just put in front of me, I packed up my Jeep and snuck my way out of Walter Reed and signed myself back into Fort Stewart.
Jeez.
Wow, that's a pivotal moment for sure.
So to get into Special Forces, there's some kind of a process where they make sure that you're a good candidate for it?
Yeah, what they're looking for, which you should automatically, if they selected me, you should automatically be questioning the process. But yeah, so they look for obviously physical attributes. However, I think the personality and cognitive attributes outweigh physical attributes a lot of times in the special operations community.
Yeah. So you went there, you got in Special Forces training. And then in this case, the Special Forces is, like you were telling us before, it's an umbrella. There's different branches of that.
So Special Operations is the broader umbrella. Special Forces is, or Green Berets is the Army's really main component of the Special Operations community, but there's a ton of different units that fall underneath that umbrella.
Okay. And did you have one that you wanted to specialize in when you went in, or did you kind of just get steered into one direction or the other?
No, I wanted to become a Green Beret, so that's why I went to Special Forces Assessment and Selection. So Special Forces and Green Beret are synonymous.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yep.
And in my understanding, my very limited understanding, like the Navy SEALs have a different mission than the Green Berets. Green Beret is more, and just tell me if I'm wrong, but you try and get more in with the locals and understand what's happening on the ground versus the SEALs, which kind of go in and go out, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so Special Forces works more from the unconventional warfare side of the house, where exactly what you just said, we embed with indigenous force, train with them, lead them, and then eventually take them on to operation.
Okay. That's pretty cool. And how did you, I imagine navigating that's got to be pretty tough. How did you learn all that stuff?
They actually have a phenomenal pipeline on how to teach you the skill set, because I was coming from field artillery, which has nothing to do whatsoever, even with infantry, let alone understanding what it takes to operate on a Special Forces team. So can't speak highly enough of the pipeline, the training pipeline that the schoolhouse sets in, and then more importantly, the cadre that run and lead that pipeline. That's really where you understand what it takes to operate, what it takes to actually build rapport, embed with the force, understand how to lead your own men, as well as lead someone that doesn't even speak the same language as you. So the pipeline, the schoolhouse, and the leadership, it always comes back to the people, which is what I love about Special Forces. Is, one of the first imperatives of the Special Operations community is that people are more important than hardware.
You don't hear that very often.
I never hear it really in the civilian community.
Yeah. Well, there's a lesson right there that we've not heard mostly from the the media or whatever. Go ahead, you had a question.
Well, one of the things, I mean, being so embedded in that community, kind of living and working and playing with these people that, you know, probably 10 years prior you'd never even heard of, you'd never even thought about that side of the world. Today, is there a sound or a smell that can take you automatically back to that, besides like an Exxon bathroom? Like something that just can, like, wow.
Burning trash. So burning.
Really?
Burning your garbage automatically, because as we were pushing through, as we were pushing through Iraq, they would sort of pile up all the garbage, burn it.
Oh yeah.
So that was just one smell, even if it's just faint floating through the air, always takes me directly back.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the Green Beret training. So you talked about, you know, they teach you how to interact with the locals, but what about the physical training for that? Was that any of that difficult for you?
Yeah, it was challenging, but that's where I was really fortunate having the upbringing that I did, especially the emphasis my father put on athletics and sports, and always taking care of yourself, especially from the team aspect. So Special Forces selection is very team-oriented, whereas you get into different parts of the Special Missions units, and it's more, at least your initial assessment is very individual-based. Special Forces kind of sets itself apart. They want to see, somewhat like the SEALs when they go through BUDS, they want to see how you actually operate in a team. Can you be a good follower? Can you be a good leader?
Oh.
And so pulling that with a deep background in team sports was actually played to my benefit as going through the Special Force.
Did you ever have a point when you were in training where you thought, oh crap, I can't do this? Or did you just never have a doubt?
There were definitely nights where you look around and you're like, what am I doing? This is stupid.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did I sign up for this? But there was never a point where I looked at it and was like, this is outside my capability level.
Yeah.
That was kind of like Tate. You know, my son, I'd ask him when he was in A school, I was like, what's option B? Like, what's plan B? And he goes, there is no plan B. He goes, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And it was that mindset of people that made it through that school. So I guess it's very similar to that. It's like you are your own worst enemy. You got to fight with the devil within yourself to push through it.
It's. I was just talking to him before you came in. A friend of mine signed up to do a 250-mile running race. And
he has psychotic friends.
Yeah.
That's psychotic.
But
Best friends to have.
yeah.
Psychotic.
But what and I just did a 50-mile thing in the Grand Canyon in one day.
Also psycho.
Yeah, but the point I was going to make is you are living that every day. We go sign up to do stuff like that to see what we're made of, but you were getting tested like that every day.
That was a Monday for them, yeah.
I know, yeah. I'm like, it's day in and day out during that training. You're like, okay, what am I made of right now? That's amazing to me.
And at least for me, that was, I think everybody I speak for, like at least my teammates, that's at least, even if they admit it or don't admit it, that's 50% of it, is they want to figure out if they're good enough to do it.
Yeah, I think that would be. I mean, if I was ever in that position, that would be what would be interesting to me. Am I good enough? Am I made well enough to get through this?
Yeah.
I want to talk about, you were awarded the Silver Star by General Petraeus for an incident in Kandahar.
Yep.
And I want to ask you about that. Can you tell us about that incident? Just kind of run us through what happened.
Yep. So we were part of we were the main element of a clearing effort to go through the Horn of Panjwai in Kandahar province. I believe that was 2010. I'm getting old. And so as we came into this particular village, Housi Madad had been a stronghold for the Taliban and a mixed group of other insurgents. And we were answering the request of the conventional force that was responsible for that portion of the Horn of Panjwai to come in and clear that particular village in Housi Madad. And so as we cleared through, we actually came in on the backs of another assault force that had flown in 24 hours prior to us from Ranger Regiment. They cleared their portion. We leapfrogged in 24 hours later, got into a pretty good fist fight for almost 24 hours before declaring the village cleared, and we were going to walk out to that particular conventional forces forward operating base. And on our way, that's when we got the request to clear this small portion of Housing Madad. And so as we were coming through, oh, you told me not to do that.
No, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
As we were coming through and entering the village, we noticed a couple unique things. One, there were no males in the village, no fighting age males or teenage to adult males. And then the women that were interacting with us. So we had female counterparts on our side that would interact with the females, the local females, and so that we stay within customs. And while they were interacting with them, they were very, very cold, quick in responses, almost like they wanted us to hurry up and get out. And so a couple of us noticed it, kind of what was taking place, and decided it was probably in our best interest to get out of there as quick as possible, because we were on foot. We had no vehicles. We flew in, so we were very fortunate, had an air assault mission for that particular deployment in Afghanistan. So we flew everywhere.
Yeah.
The downside of it was you had to walk out everywhere. And so as we were starting to depart that village, Housing Madad, we kind of took a look around and what the environment was, what the setting was. It was broad daylight, which is typically something we don't want to do. However, there are a couple of circumstances that were pushing us to walk during the day. So mistake one. And as we were starting to take in and survey what route we should take out of the village, there was nothing but barren grape fields. So grape fields, if you've never seen them before, they have huge mounds, huge humps. Yeah. And when, well, it doesn't matter if there's grapes on them or if they're barren, they provide phenomenal cover and concealment if somebody wanted to lay down an ambush on you. So we decided not to walk through the grape fields and actually do something we typically do not ever do, and walk a hard packed road, a paved road. Because typically at that time, that's where they would dig in IEDs.
Sure.
They'd lay IEDs, cover them back up. And so then the pressure plate, as you stepped on that hard packed road, would detonate. But because of the threat that the fields posed to us and putting us out in the open for a couple miles, we decided to walk that hard path road, because they had two probably about 5-foot walls on either side that would give us cover and concealment if we did walk into an ambush. And so as we started to exit the village and make our way up to that forward operating base that the conventional military was holding, our senior medic was doing his job, counting us out. He was going to be the last to leave the formation. We were walking, for the most part, in a single file line on this path. And as we were pushing out, I actually took the element and lead. So I was the first out with my small element of Afghanistan commandos, who was our partner force, so special forces working by, with, and through a partner force. And then we also had some interagency attachments to us, like DIA and FBI. So
How many total?
I think total on that operation, I think we had somewhere around 70.
Oh, wow.
So we had Afghan commandos, we had our special forces ODA, we had a sister ODA attached to us to help us because it was a pretty large mission. And then we were very, very fortunate on that particular deployment. We had attachments from FBI and DEA with us.
Oh, wow.
So we were plussed up pretty well, and it played out into our favor. And so as I pulled through our choke points, our senior medic account out, and start to lead the movement, we actually went on kind of a Z pattern on this path, traveling west and north, trying to get to Highway 1 in Hornapanchway. And so as I led out, was getting the radio calls from the back as each individual element went through the choke point, so that I could keep accountability of where our forces, where our elements were along this path. And then we positioned our team leader, the only officer we have on the team, in the middle of the movement, so that he could keep command and control front and back. And then as some of our last elements were coming through, our senior medic's choke point, we actually heard fire open up from the rear, and that's when the radio calls had started up that we had come under attack. They had set an ambush in the rear. They were just waiting for our guys to come through the last and get in between those walls. Well, as they initiated from the back, they also initiated on us in the very front. And so we were fighting from two different positions to regain control and suppress the enemy. And so while we were trying to lay in place return fire and secure the front of the movement, kept hearing radio calls from the back that we had a couple guys.
Yeah, you're good.
A couple guys that had been shot, but we didn't have any really any insight into the severity of the wound sustained.
Yeah.
So we fought for what felt about Friday and Saturday, but probably was 15 minutes in total before we secured the front. Secured the front of the movement on the north side before I could actually get my bearings about me and listen to the real radio traffic on what's taking place in the back. So I left our two DEA agents in the front as command and control of our Afghan partners, which always is probably one of the funnier stories that
They're probably looking at you like,
yeah, you
what?
got a smirk on your face. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of our DEA agents had actually almost gone down as a heat casualty hours before.
Oh, jeez.
Because he was one of the largest human beings I'd ever met in my life. And so I don't know if he was stealing his own stash as they were confiscating it in the DEA, but I'd never seen a bigger human being ever. He also still, for his weapon, his primary weapon was an M60, so an automatic squad weapon rifle that hadn't been used by anybody except, I think, for him in decades. Because nobody's large enough to carry it.
Jeez.
So I left him in charge, and as I was making my way back to our team leader in the middle, the thought I had was like, I'll probably never see Joe again. Like, he's either going to die of a heat casualty or he's going to get shot trying to pick up that big ass weapon.
And he's a pretty big target, it sounds like, too.
He's a huge target.
It's hard to miss.
He was like four Afghans wide.
Oh, God.
Jeez.
And so as I make my way back to where our team leader is, there's rounds chipping off the walls as we're making our way back. Like I said, the walls are about 5 foot. And at that time, parachuting and carrying rucksacks hadn't stolen an inch and a half away from me. So I was still 6'4" at the time. And so ducking with rounds chipping over your head, it's very surreal.
Yeah.
And got back to where our team leader was with our Air Force combat controller. They were communicating up to our headquarters as well as to the forward operating base, looking for support. And then our combat controller was controlling the aircraft overhead. And so, you and I talked about before to start it, what are some of the lessons you want to pull out of me for the broader public? I think you take away the intensity and sort of the surreal aspect of the situation I'm describing. And the lessons you can actually instill into our community, understanding how to operate as a team, the importance of people, everybody doing their job and not trying to do more than their job. So there's a lot of things to be able to pull out of even the worst situations.
Yeah.
But make our way back to the story, make our way back to my team leader, to my officer. He's trying to gain control and understanding what had taken place, how many casualties we had, what the state was, like, are they still alive? And with the confusion of the situation, we couldn't get a real accurate readout and report from the rear. So he and I looked at each other, and we both knew that somebody had to run their big Caucasian ass to the back of the formation.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what was the distance between the front of the line to the back of the line?
About 500 meters.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So you
close
needed
5
to
football
get back
fields.
there to put eyes on what the situation was
Exactly.
at the back. Okay.
I was on a situation report back up to him. What do we need? Do we need a CASEVAC helicopter? What do we need? So, yeah, he and I both looked at each other. We knew that one of us had to run back there, and we both also knew that he was not going to be the one that ran back there. So I giggled, stood off, and took off running as quick as I could to get back there. And as I was running, it was a Z-shaped pattern we had to walk out of the village on. So I had to make a hard left turn as I was coming down in between these two walls. And as I made a hard left turn, one of the better memories I have of it is we had a Navy explosive ordnance detachment, EOD, attached to us to help with clearing mines, clearing IEDs. And this particular EOD operator happened to be a female. who was phenomenal. Can't speak highly enough about her. However, in this particular situation, she was kind of shell-shocked by what was going on in the situation because it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Like, you're in an L-shaped ambush in the middle of Afghanistan with nobody there to help you yet. Like, it can be a bit overwhelming. And so as I hit that left turn, and I still remember it, like in the cartoons, you remember when like they would make a hard turn around the corner, they like skip on one foot. Yeah, and all the dust be shooting up. That's how I still imagine it in my mind. And so as I was hitting the I looked over and her name was Arnie, which was fitting for her. Arnie, all the action was happening out the opposite direction she was facing. She happened to be facing in where all the friendly forces were, and her weapon was just kind of slung down to the ground, and she always smoked. And she had a cigarette that was kind of hanging, barely hanging by the top of her lip. And like her eyes were wide, just watching me come around this corner.
Oh, jeez.
And like time almost stopped, and we kind of just stared at each other. And I was wondering, why in the hell are you facing the wrong direction and smoking in the middle of a firefight?
She might have been thinking, this might be my last
This might be
cigarette.
the
I better
last
take it
one.
right now. Wow.
Which was, it just looked like a scene from like Platoon, a bad Vietnam movie.
Yeah.
But eventually made my way to the back, and we had two wounded Afghan commandos, and then our senior medic who was counting everyone out. He actually got shot in the left buttocks,
Oh, God.
which we never let him live.
I was going to say, I bet you never let him live that down. Geez.
No. The only way you get shot in the butt is if you're running away from the action.
Were any of those fatalities?
No, so we're very, very
Oh,
fortunate.
yeah.
And again, back to everyone understand their function, and having.
Phenomenal.
Yep. So as we got back there and started assessing the situation, there was a whole other, like, a heroic scene going on back there by our junior medic, who still to this day is one of my best friends, Bobby Bradford. He actually came back before I did because those three were the first, like, they were hit right away, all at the same time. And so our junior medic, Bobby, who had actually volunteered to come with us because we were a medic short. So he did a deployment right before ours for 6 months, went home for about 15 minutes, and then jumped on the plane with us.
Oof.
That's a good guy there.
Yeah.
That's a good guy.
Well, either that or just too dumb to die.
Yeah.
So when I got back there and actually got to their location, there's a culvert, a real small ditch on the inside, thank God, inside of that wall that was giving him protection to give aid to the three wounded. So he had already made his way through the two Afghans. They were just laying in a ditch waiting for somebody to essentially come and save him. And then he was working on our medic, so essentially his boss, working on his butt.
On his butt.
As I came around the corner and saw him, I was like, and I made a mental note at that point. It's like, there will be stories forever about this. And so the cool thing about Bobby, our junior medic, giving aid to our senior medic was he had also been injured. He had also been wounded. And so they had shot an RPG at that back part of our force when they initiated the ambush. They airburst it, which means they weren't trying to actually hit the wall or hit a particular person or piece of equipment. They were trying to burst it over our heads to create
Send
mass
shrapnel
casualties.
down,
Yeah. And so Bobby took the brunt of that with a lot of shrapnel. Coming into, they ended up being, fortunately, superficial wounds into the face. But as he's treating, one casualty, he's actually a casualty himself as he's bleeding from his face. But then back to the comedic part of it, how they had initiated that ambush. They were in a two-story building about 150 meters away from where the entrance to that walkway.
That L-shaped walkway, yeah.
And so what the Taliban had done was cut a V-shaped hole in that near wall nearest to that building where they set up their heavy machine gun. And so as our guys passed through, that's what they were using essentially as their aiming stakes to aim through to be able to get our guys. Fortunately, they're probably midget Taliban because they shot everybody in the butt.
Midget Taliban.
But
I think that's our title. I don't think we can get away with that, but midget Taliban. Okay.
so if there's any Taliban in the area, I apologize.
Yeah, we apologize to our Taliban
Yeah.
listeners.
Yeah. And so as I get back to where Bobby's providing aid, we have two of my other teammates from the Special Forces ODA placed in the culvert, and they were shooting out of the V that they had initiated the ambush. They were actually returning fire, trying to give Bobby cover to provide aid until we got more people back there to get him out. And so as I came in, I'm a Cincinnati guy, right? So I Pete Rose and actually thought this as I was diving, which tells you a little bit about my mental state. I was thinking, like, man, I'm going to Pete Rose it into this headfirst dive into this culvert, and I'm going to have something to tell my boys back home. And so as I dive in there, the two guys from the ODA that were providing suppressive fire for our medic, they were actually best friends on the ODA. How did they complete opposites? So one was a 6'3" African-American that probably weighed 250 pounds, strongest human being I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
And the other one was somebody you would never imagine being in Special Forces, short, a little bit pudgy, afraid of everything, but one of the smartest human beings in the world. So
Really?
he was our intel guy on the team.
Okay.
And they were they always argued. They were arguing in the middle of a firefight in the cut in the wall about who was actually shooting better and where they should be shooting. And so as I Pete Rose it in and I listen to what's going on, I'm like, I can't make this stuff up. And so I peel off a hand grenade, a frag grenade, and throw it at the building, launch it towards the building. It falls a little short. Don't tell nobody. and so the reason I'm throwing it is trying not necessarily get it all. It was 150 meters away. I'm just trying to get their heads down.
Yeah.
It goes off. Fire stops coming from the enemy for a second. Then it picks back up. And so then stand up and I throw another one. Well, this time it goes quiet for extended period of time. And as the enemy stops firing, the short, pudgy white guy that's providing suppressive fire, he looks at me and goes, his name's Aaron Mellerby. He looks at me and goes, I completely forgot we had hand grenades.
Jeez.
It happens to me every day.
Every day.
I totally forget.
That blows my mind that it's like you kind of have there's just this extreme situation going on, but you still are like just like it's like Michelle and I here in this office selling real estate or something. It's like this is business. This is an office day. This is what we do. Is that kind of how it felt?
It was intense, but I think that's how the vast majority of us from that community deal with the situation.
Yeah.
It's like
there's no panic. There's
no panic. Well, for the most part, there's no panic.
Yeah.
There's always that feeling, but you have the ability to calm it down.
There's no panic at that moment when you're
not.
leaving that moment that night. You put your head on your pillow. Hopefully, you're putting your head on a pillow. That's when the panic probably sets in and like, what the hell did I just witness? What did I just do?
Yeah.
That's I hearing these stories in such detail and so descriptive. Like I literally feel like I'm there. I can see the front of the line, the back of the line, the walls. Is there somebody through your entire time of service that you still carry with you every single day? I mean, the fact that you can remember the cigarette hanging out of her mouth and just someone that has just carried you within your story probably till the day you die.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. It's all right. I don't think those of us that have not served and experienced that, I mean, we know what it's like to miss people, but I think the what you've gone through is, I mean, it's
the shared
over and
experiences, the trauma, the life-threatening ordeals, and I'm sure that when this brotherhood and / sisterhood of individuals that you have met throughout your life, when you guys get together, probably the energy in that room is electric and probably very inappropriate.
It's always inappropriate, and it's a lot. Yeah, but it's great.
Yeah.
It's kind of. It's when you feel like you're actually home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, were you good at giving people crap? Like, giving it and getting it, or did you?
Oh, no,
is that something you learned in the military?
No, I was horrible.
I'm not as
I was
good at
very,
it
very
as
shy.
she is. Yeah. Were you really? You were shy.
I was very, very shy. I didn't come out of my shell until I actually got into the military.
Yeah.
No, very shy. Didn't speak much. Being for the longest time kind of the minority in downtown Cincinnati,
Yeah.
And playing basketball. I was always just very good at being quiet and blending in.
Keeping to yourself.
Yeah. So I didn't develop the ability to talk shit until I got into really special forces. Now it's a natural part of my everyday
I was
conversation.
going to say, you got to keep up with that, or it's going to get really ugly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so now I'm trying to impart that on my 3 boys.
I bet.
What I want to know also is that life from military life transitioning over to civilian life, that kind of camaraderie, that kind of smart ass, you just quick. How different is it now when like you're in the corporate world, and obviously there's some hierarchy in the corporate structure, but you can't.
I mean, you can.
You can. I mean, this is why I work with Steve.
If we can we jump back to, you asked me, is there somebody I'll carry with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily want to pass it over, just
No.
in a second. So yeah, I was telling Steve while you two were out getting
Gallivanting.
coffee.
Yeah, gallivanting.
Yeah, around the gorgeous Keller Williams building. So my best friend through the military, he and I met in actually at Special Forces Assessment Selection. So when we were actually trying to become Green Berets, Greg Leach, he was coming in from 25th Infantry Division in Hawaii. I was coming from Fort Stewart. We bunked right next to each other, Lawson and Leach. I had no idea how to lay in an L-shaped ambush, let alone tie the 8 different knots we needed to tie with proficiency, coming from field artillery. So he was infantry, had already gone to Ranger school, Ranger tabbed. So I looked up to him right away. And so at night, once we get done with our daily events until we got into team week, he would stay up with me and like coach my very slow self through how to tie knots properly, how to actually set your rucksack up, how to do things that a basic infantryman already knows how to do, because I had to catch back up to everybody else in quick fashion if I was going to make it.
Right.
So he was critical to me becoming a Green Beret. And then just by chance, and once you get selected at Special Forces Assessment Selection, you go on to then what's called a qualification course. And that can last anywhere to 12 to 18 months, depending upon what job they give you.
Oh, wow.
And so it's also based on language. So you got to have a second language. You got to be proficient in a second language as you come out of the Special Forces qualification course. Mine was French. I grew up speaking French in downtown Cincinnati. That was one of the good things that came out of Cincinnati. From the time I was in kindergarten until I graduated college, I had taken French. And so when they asked me what language I wanted, I was like, that was easy.
Yeah.
Like French.
I already know that one.
Yeah. So Greg, and sorry, I'll probably take a little longer than you intended.
It's okay.
No.
But he's worth talking about. Greg never actually finished high school, so he had his GED. Tough family life, which is probably why, like where I came from, where he came from,
Yeah.
identified pretty quick. But he was probably the most intelligent human being I ever met. And so when they asked him at the point after selection, like, hey, we're going to bring you on board, send you to the Q course, like, what language do you want? And he chose Russian. He wanted to go to 5th group.
Okay.
Had never spoken another language and chose one of the harder ones.
I was going to
out of
say,
the
I
group,
think that's a
right?
tough one, yeah.
Yeah, and he finished. So they rate you on your ability to understand it and then speak it for your final assessment as you get out of language school. Highest you can get is a 3.3. And basic, I think the basic what you need to pass was like a 1.1, something like that. Anywho, but he had never spoken Russian before, never spoken a foreign language before, and he actually graduated with a 3.3 in Russian.
Jeez, wow.
And so he was supposed to, based upon my language and my job, I was supposed to stay at Fort Bragg at 3rd Special Forces Group. Because of his language, he was supposed to go to 5th Special Forces Group in Fort Campbell. Well, there's a mix-up in paperwork as we were graduating, and he actually got assigned to 3rd Group. And because I graduated like 3 months before he did, because he had the longer language, the harder language. I actually had the opportunity when I got to my company, to my battalion in 3rd Group, actually advocate for him to come over to our Halo team. So I went to our direct action team. He went to our Halo team. So we got to spend all of our time in 3rd Special Force group together.
The friendships that you guys have when you go through all that stuff together, that bond's got to be so tight.
Yeah, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. Do you miss not being active duty?
I miss the camaraderie. I miss the purpose. We didn't always have clear defined objectives. I like that too.
Yeah.
Sort of ambiguity of it and having to figure things out and understand like what it is you need to accomplish.
Yeah.
But I think I'm, for the most part, pretty at peace. Like, I got out. They got everything they were going to get out of me.
Yeah.
And it was time once Erin and I met. And we were a long-distance relationship for a number of years before I retired. It was God was just showing me that it was time to move
You
on.
knew when it was time.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you still have friends that are active
Yeah, I do.
duty? And
Yeah.
what are they saying just about the current state of the military, like just recently and in the last couple of years, how they feel about things?
They're all, for the most part, pretty upstanding human beings, so they don't give their opinion on sort of the current state of affairs.
Okay.
Very mission-oriented.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
What do you think is one thing that you would like kind of the general public to understand about serving in the military? Like if you had to talk to some young kid that's in high school right now that was thinking about joining the military, run, do it only if you're going to do it for yourself.
I would advise that I believe probably just about everybody needs to do it, but they need to do it with a plan. Always hated to see, which in many cases actually worked out well for them, but what I hated in the beginning was for some of the kids that were coming through it, I'd already been to college, so I had some sort of life experience. Some of these kids, it was pretty much their only option for any sort of life success. They had no plan. They were just trying to get in. And the military can be the worst decision ever, or it can be the absolute best decision ever. But what I would emphasize is the necessity to have a plan on what you want to do in the military. It can change,
Yeah.
but there needs to be some sort of base plan, understanding on the path you want to go, because the military can swallow you up.
I was just going to, so if you go in just like, hey, I'm going to join the Army, and you don't really know what you're going to do, the Army can put you in something that you absolutely hate.
Absolutely hate. And then you spend the next 3-4 years of your life doing something you absolutely do not want to be doing.
Yeah.
And then you get around a group of people, like, it's just like the civilian world. There's good leadership, bad leadership.
Yeah.
Like there's good employees and teammates, bad employees and teammates.
Yeah.
And so you need to pick your path very carefully and understand. I think even more important is understanding who you are. That's where I failed a little bit. I didn't really understand when I went in who I was. I just know I wanted to keep serving and participating in a small team environment and be challenged from a physical and mental aspect.
Has your definition of service changed since you're out of serving in the military?
How do you mean?
Like, when you're in the military, you basically, my mindset was, my kid doesn't belong to me anymore. He belongs to the United States Coast Guard, right?
Yeah.
And so now you're serving a different purpose. You're no longer serving the United States armies. But so now that you're out of that, you can step back. Are you looking at it a lot different, and who you choose and what you choose to serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm no longer serving the military. I'm a representative of it, is the way I try to conduct myself. And sometimes fail. But anytime we go in public, I think Erin told you that coach travel basketball, try to impart on our boys, you're a representative of your community, a representative of your family.
Yeah.
I try to carry that same thought process from the military. I'm still a representative. Now, whether I'm a good representative or bad representative of the military, that's for somebody else to judge, but still try to think of it from that capacity.
Yeah.
And then the way I serve, or try to serve, is impart whatever good characteristics I built, which are very few, and impart them on not just our boys and our daughter, but also the boys that we coach.
Are any of your kids interested in joining the military?
Unfortunately, I think they are.
Yeah.
At least I know one of them is. So, and it is something I encourage, but that's a conversation that I have with him. And then my youngest stepson, Erin's youngest, Isaac, he's articulated that he would be interested in something along the lines of like a fighter pilot. Like he has interest in engineering. Like, okay, that gives me a basis to have conversation like, hey man, I think it's phenomenal, but the college aspect of that is important, not so much from the education, which is obviously very important, but the time to mature and grow and understand who you are is even more important.
Yeah. Well, your kids are already going to have a leg up because of what you just said. Have a plan. Don't just join the military and see what happens. Go in with a purpose.
Go with the plan, understand what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Wow.
I have a question. The question I have, and I've asked my son this question. It's kind of like, you know, when you're on your deathbed and you're looking back, what do you hope that your kids and even the kids that you coach, that you're around, kind of take away from the life that you've led?
Maybe resilience, the ability to handle adversity, understand that life, it doesn't matter if you go to the military, you're a civilian the entire time. Life is built to challenge you. And the more resilient you are, the better you know yourself, the more tools you put into your toolbox on how to be successful and add value in life will directly impact your ability to be resilient.
Yeah.
As life and God throw at you what they're going to throw at you.
I mean, our lives are not near as tough as some of the stuff that you went through, but life's tough. And I hear some of these young kids, life's not fair. It's like, damn right, life's not fair. That's the way life is.
You don't want it to be fair.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
that's one of the main things like I've come to grips with is like I love the fact of how difficult my transition out of the military has been. I'm slowly starting to love it because that's what I should be displaying as the tools that I built in the military.
Yeah.
To be able to display them to our children.
To help other people have better lives.
That's really what I think the intent of the military is. We have a service to come back out and impart what we learned and the experience that we had back out to the broader community.
I think that's huge. I think a lot of people that maybe leave the military that get a little bit lost don't feel that direction. So that if you're putting that message out there, I think that's really big.
Exactly, especially with the everlasting effects that you have from serving. You talked about the pain that you've been in for getting the crap beat out of you for the last 20 years, and so you're still dealing with that. So it's almost like still a reminder of your service, like constantly. Yep. How do you deal with that, handle that physically, mentally? Is there a place? I mean, you obviously work out. I mean, is there a place that you go where you're like, okay, this is where I'm going to go to deal with this kind of pain?
Yeah, so I used to love, while I was in the military, like going to our gym that we had at the unit where I retired out of. But then just even being on post, going to the gyms there, I always found more solace just being around people, like people. That helped me kind of deal with whether it be emotional pain or physical pain, just being around that tight-knit group of people. What I found when I came out, I thought I was going to love to go to the Y or the Golds and try to immerse myself in the community. But very quickly, what I found was I wanted to create my own space at our house. And so that's slowly, and I'm not even sure that you and I have talked about this. That's slowly what I'm trying to construct in our house. As we deal with, opposing football and basketball schedules and everything else that 4 kids bring, is a space, an area on our property where we can go to and kind of disconnect and feel like a part of our family.
So are you mostly lifting weights? Are you doing other stuff?
Yeah, so mostly lifting weights. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So can't run near as much as I like to. So you talk about doing 50Ks, ultramarathons. I love it. I used to love to run. The military is where I actually found my passion for running. But then had a couple incidents, got blown off the side of a mountain in Afghanistan, and they had to reconstruct my left leg.
Oh, jeez.
In 2012, 2013. So that was about the last of my really consistent running.
Yeah, I'm at the point. I'm 62 now. and a lot of my friends that I work out with are a little older, and my mantra is do what you can do. So if you can't run anymore, go swim. If you can't swim, go to the gym. If you can't find something though that you can do. Just do whatever it's possible.
You're 62. You're looking younger than me.
I feel good. I mean,
don't encourage him.
Yeah,
don't encourage him.
But you know, yeah.
I feel like he doesn't get a lot of encouragement.
No, he does not. He does not get a lot of encouragement. I'll tell you what. I was just telling a friend of mine yesterday this. Aging has been very interesting to me, and I'll wake up in the morning and I'll go, "Oh, that's new," and I'm like, "Oh, damn, I never had that before." And then the next day I'll go, "Wait a minute, it just got freaking worse." Like it's like you think you're like, "Okay, this is as bad as it's going to get," but then it just over time it gets worse and worse and worse. It just compounds.
No,
it's
your
crazy.
body keeps showing you how bad it can get.
Yeah, agreed. Did you have some rapid fire?
And then he comes into the office, and then I just beat him up mentally all day.
But that gives me resilience, Chad.
Every day.
I'm
That's all she's
resilient.
ability.
I
That
do have
capacity to be resilient.
I do have some rapid fire, but I had this one other question I wanted to ask you. Do you think it's hard for people that have served in the capacity that you have served? And this is going to be kind of an emotional question because I asked this in regards to my son, and I see the things that he has, or through his storytelling, the things that he has seen, right? Do you, it's emotional for me to even ask this question, but do you have a hard time forgiving things that you have seen or things that you have done or things that you should have done? I mean, how do you get to that space?
I think that's one of the things, what you just rattled off right there. That's something I've never really had an issue being okay with. Like, I think every decision, and I talked to Erin about this relatively often, every decision I made in the military on the battlefield or failed to make, like I'm very, very at ease with, given the situation and given what I knew about those situations.
At the time.
Like I would have made the same decisions again, I think.
That's a very healthy way to look at it.
I agree. Don't you think sometimes the most important part is making a decision, not necessarily that it's the perfect decision, but that you decide to take course of action, right?
So that's one of the things in my civilian job now, trying to really ingrain in the culture is you can't stand in the doorway. Like you can't get overwhelmed by circumstances and situation. And it doesn't need to be the perfect decision. Like we just need to make a decision, and then based upon new information, we can adjust our decision and adjust azimuth. But the first step to being successful is understanding the environment the best you can, the amount of time that you have.
Yeah.
Make a decision and move forward.
Yeah, don't get stuck.
That's a
I
great
love that.
answer.
Yeah, don't stand in the doorway.
That's
yeah,
a
there
great
you go.
answer.
That might be our title.
Yeah. Okay, so okay, here's some of my rapid fire. What's your favorite MRE?
Oh,
If there is one.
I'm trying to think of the ones that are not my favorite. I love them.
Do you really?
So the bean and rice burrito, which was discontinued probably 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer before I retired, that's still my number one favorite, bean and rice burrito.
Bean and rice burrito. Okay.
Yep.
If someone could play you in a movie, who would you want to be the lead? Or who do you think Erin would like for you to play you in a lead?
Who I feel would be most fitting.
Yes.
You ever seen the movie Gilbert Grape?
Yeah. What's eating Gilbert Grape?
No, I don't know. Who would you like me to
Is
be?
that Leonardo?
Yeah. But the Gilbert Grape, Leonardo.
I have to look that up. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what that's
okay,
about.
well, that's pretty funny.
Hemsworth.
Oh, Hemsworth. Okay,
yeah.
Liam.
Who do you
Yeah.
think, Chad?
I don't know. Never thought about
Yeah.
I see Bradley Cooper, but he's already played somebody, so we're not
Yeah.
gonna do that. Okay, what's one thing in our community, our veterans?
I don't know about supporting the veterans. I think that sometimes we make a bigger deal about that than possible. I think that it's just, I look at it from a different point of view. What do we need to do to be a better part of the community? And I just want to
you
be
look at it from the opposite.
from the
view.
opposite
Oh,
end. And that's really, I think, the way that we should all approach it is, what do we need to do to become a real community? Because I think over the last several years since COVID, you've seen a healthy mix, almost like meatloaf, of people coming in from different states and different backgrounds and cultures. And I think that over time, that fabric will kind of sew itself. But that's what, when I look at it, is like, how do I become a better part of what's going on here? Now, in the very beginning, and Erin can tell you, Like, I absolutely hated being here. It was so different. And the people, I did not recognize them. Part of why I disliked living in Belterra was like everybody else was the exact same. And I was completely different. I had no idea how to be a part of it. And slowly over time, what I learned was they didn't have the problem. I needed to figure out, how do I take what qualities I want to instill within the community and make an effort towards that. Wow. Not everybody sees it the same, obviously, but that's the way I approach it.
That's where I think what Joe does over at 12 Fox, the fireside chats, I think it's he's kind of built his own.
Yeah. Do you know Joe Hogue?
I've met him a few times.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's a great guy.
It's an amazing. Okay, so my last question is, who was your hero growing up?
My dad.
Oh, that's a good hero to have. Yeah.
And you're probably your kid's hero too. So there you go.
Chad, this has been phenomenal. I'm really glad. I know you were a little hesitant to come on, but I think that our listeners are going to really appreciate your insight and the thoughts that you have about your service. And I just want to thank you for your service and everything you did for our country. And I appreciate your time today.
I so appreciate you spending time with us. And I know, we asked some hard questions and kind of brought you back to places that aren't comfortable, but we really appreciate you sharing the space with us. And thank you to Erin, your wife, who's sitting here also. We appreciate her being here.
Thank you both for coming in.
No, thank you for having me. And appreciate the questions. Wasn't very comfortable with it, but appreciate what y'all are doing with the community.
Well, I'm glad you came on. I think it was very important.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're out.